Shoreviewken!
Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm reviewing Namco X Capcom for the PlayStation 2, and to be honest, I almost didn't want to review this one. And not because it's a bad game, far from it. I actually love this game, but it's so big and there's just so much to talk about, I didn't think I could do it justice. A review of this game could easily just turn into a highlight reel, but I'm going to do my best. Namco X Capcom was released in 2005, and it was developed by Monolith Soft, who are perhaps best known for developing the Xenosaga series. It can best be described as a cross between a strategy RPG and an action RPG that combines the characters and settings of numerous Namco and Capcom properties, and it was later followed by Project Cross Zone and Cross Edge. And whereas those games both got international releases, this one stayed exclusive to Japan, much to the dismay of many gamers around the world. The plot to Namco X Capcom reminds me a little of Kingdom Hearts actually, with villains from various games coming together and being controlled by an initially unseen force. Two new characters named Reiji and Zhao Mu are introduced and serve as the game's main protagonists. They're part of a paranormal investigation unit, and initially they're investigating a sleeping sickness affecting Shibuya when they realize that there's something much bigger going on. The story continues to unfold one chapter to the next as more characters are introduced and the various worlds begin to cross over. As this is an RPG, there is a lot of dialogue, which may turn most people off to it who don't speak Japanese, but the gameplay is so easy to get a grasp of that it really doesn't matter all that much. Plus, there's no open world exploration, so there's no concern about getting lost somewhere and giving up in frustration. Most of the dialogue is totally expository anyway. Even 15 hours in, the game is still explaining why all this craziness is happening, and characters are still being introduced. And that's one of my favorite aspects of Namco X Capcom, the sheer number of characters that are included. Not only characters you'd expect, like those from Street Fighter or Tekken, but a lot more obscure characters as well, like the lead characters from Dino Crisis, or some Namco characters that haven't been in a game since the PC Engine days. And it's not just the size of the cast I like either. I like some of the less obvious choices. A good example is Hideo and Kyoko from the Rival Schools series. They could have easily gone with main characters Batsu and Hinata, but they didn't, and I really like that. Give some of those side characters a bit of limelight for a change. Of course, they also included the one character you really need in a game like this.
Shoreviewken! 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 まさに俺の一人舞台ってとこだな。
Aside from all the playable characters, there are also tons of villains and lesser enemies from the many different games included. Now, finally, you can see Jin Kazama beat the piss out of a Mu from Klonoa. How did they know I wanted to see that? The gameplay in Namco X Capcom is surprisingly simple. Each chapter takes place on a grid battlefield that you'll move your characters around on, and this is the strategy RPG portion of the game. Every unit, which can be either a single character or two characters working in tandem, can move a certain number of spaces and attack from varying ranges. Some can only attack while adjacent to enemies, while others can attack from either up close or from a distance. Characters also have the ability to use items and cast magic while on the battlefield, i.e. healing, curing poison, or boosting stats for either themselves or allies. You and your enemies obviously take turns when moving around the field, and the order is decided by who has the most active points, which increase with successful attacks and also need to be spent to use special abilities. Once you engage in combat, the game switches to the action RPG portion. Attacking is done simply by pressing the circle button in combination with the directional buttons, and you have a limited number of attacks you can perform each turn, but you can earn an extra attack and do more damage by juggling the enemy in the air. So you need to figure out the best combination of moves with each character to extend your juggles, in much the same way you would in a fighting game. Also, like a fighting game, when you land enough attacks to fill up your active points meter, you can perform a really powerful ultimate attack, and they look awesome. And if you have two units close enough to one another, and both have enough active points, you can perform a multiple assault, which does a ton of damage. You have a lot of options for how you'll attack in this game, and it's all pretty easy to get the hang of. Defending against attacks is also pretty easy. When you're attacked, you can spend one active point to block. There will then be a series of timed button presses to perform, and the better you do, the less damage you take. You can also spend more points on power blocking and counterattacking, or choose not to block at all and not give up any points. All things considered, the gameplay in Namco X Capcom is very easy to get the hang of and fun. Plus, the game starts with a tutorial and 4 prologue chapters just to get you acclimated. The graphics in Namco X Capcom are good, I guess. All of the characters are 2D sprites, and they're well representative of their source material. And like I said, there are some really cool looking attacks with some nice flashy effects, and it's fun to just watch the action unfold on screen. No real complaints with the characters, but the environments can be pretty drab, and whatever 3D graphics are in the game are pretty basic. Overall though, I'm happy with the look of the game. The sound design, on the other hand, I am more than happy with. I think it's great. Every character has their own theme from whichever game they come from. For instance, Sakura has her theme from Street Fighter Alpha 2, Ryu and Ken have their Street Fighter 2 themes, etc. And the music that's original to the game is also amazing. Not surprising considering that the lead composer was Yuzo Koshiro, who created a lot of Sega's best music in the 90s. Overall, the presentation in Namco X Capcom is excellent. So, I really love this game, and admittedly, a big part of that comes from just loving both of these companies for many years. This really is a huge fan service to us retro gamer types. If you're not very familiar with Namco or Capcom's back library of games, you might not enjoy this game as much as I do, but I still think this is a game that stands well enough on its own. Like I said, Namco X Capcom is a simple enough game that the language barrier shouldn't really be much of a problem, so don't be turned off by the fact that it's a Japanese exclusive. If you're a fan of either company, past or present, do yourself a favor and give this game a shot. I think you'll be glad you did.